listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans, with three regulars at Ashton Gate who love the club, the game and all things Bears. So after the Christmas come-down, a visit to Saracens was always going to be a tough assignment, given their team and our track record in North London. In the end, a bonus point was probably about right, although we did look a few gift horses in the mouth in the first half, and getting a cheeky point was some consolation. The women were also in action today, with nearly 10,000 people at Ashton Gate keen to catch a glimpse of our Ilona Maher, and equally as importantly, to see a league victory. They got the first, but sadly not the second, as Gloucester Hartbury spoiled the party with a dominant second half performance. Miles was there, and he'll tell us all about it. Finally, we preview next Sunday's Champions Cup game against Benetton with the help of a special guest and Bristol legend Andy Uren, who makes his first return to his hometown since moving to Treviso. All this and more, I'm Pete, and I'm joined by Lee and Miles for cheeky beer and a bit of rugby banter back at the Bristol Beer Factory tap room.
Hello, boys.
Yeah, so Lee, we weren't here last week because Bristol City had been playing and it was rammed, and we went back to my place.
It's chaos, wasn't it?
It was
North
chaos
Street
down
was
here.
chaos.
North Street chaos, but much more.
Sounded like Pete's house was chaos too.
Well, to be honest, when we got there,
we surprised the girls, didn't we?
I know, and I hadn't really prepared, so I had to move all the washing, and then I had to get all the.
No.
And then I couldn't use the normal table that we put the microphone on because the Christmas tree was on it, and
I'll tell you what, Miles, the plimps are still on the floor.
So, and the plinth, the old runners,
the kicker boards.
The kicker boards are still there. They will be there until we sell that house. In fact, we'll add it on to the value of the house when we sell it eventually.
Probably there won't be a colour match by the time we sell it.
But anyway, so we're back at the tap room, and we're here to review the Saracens game. We'll have a little chat about it. I mean, interestingly, I actually went to the game live, so. Because I got a friend up in Hartbury, and I drove up and stayed the night, and then came back this morning. And then Miles, you boys watched it on TV. So it's always quite interesting to have perspectives of being there live, because obviously I missed quite a lot of things. I did have a quick look on the brief highlights just to remind myself, but of course I got a bit of a. I was behind the posts, quite close to the pitch, which is very different to what we normally have at Ashton Gate. So it's quite interesting that perception. And then I did put out a clarion call for short summaries, and we've got quite a few. So at some point we'll stop and read them.
The listeners never let us down.
The listeners never let us down. They are a constant. So first of all, let's get on to this Saracen. Obviously, after the Sale debacle. Although, I don't know, do we call it a debacle? I don't think it
I think you surmised it to be a blip.
Yeah, but it wasn't really a debacle, because that implies we did something wrong. But I don't think we did that much wrong. We tried to play rugby and they suffocated us. Yeah. I just think it was a blip in that sense, because as proven by yesterday, we did come out and score 4 tries. So not scoring a try definitely was a blip, but it was a chastening night.
Chastening.
It was a chastening night. So in some ways, the worst thing in the world was then to have an away game at Saracens, because we basically never win there. And the only sort of crumb of comfort was the fact that we were still on that record-breaking away win streak. But that obviously was that came to an end.
Shattered, very shattered.
It was shattered. I'm proud to say I was there to see that away. It was all my fault. Yeah. So anyway, it was a funny old game. It was 5:30 kickoff's a bit weird on a Saturday. Hang around all day.
And what are your thoughts on playing on like a sports ground? It's an odd environment, isn't it? I've been there. You've got like one stand, an athletics track.
No,
and then a
4G, 2 stands.
2 stands.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think they might have upgraded it, because it is basically an athletics ground with 2 fixed stands either parallel to either side, and then they've got 2 temporary stands at either end behind the goals, which are over the kind of bend in the far bend of the railway.
It's not far off of Ealing Trail Forest, though, is
it?
No.
Well, those stands are pretty big. It was a lot bigger than I expected, and I've got to say, it wasn't bad. I didn't queue for a beer or anything. It's quite well organised there. They had quite a lot of street food things, and they used the outdoor, and they had some marquees behind my stand. And I mean, the atmosphere was pretty rubbish. I got to say, I didn't feel there was much atmosphere there, and that's not disrespectful to Saracens fans.
It's the geography, isn't it? It's just two stands, open ends,
and that is the problem, isn't it? When you've got two stands, you've got so many gaps in between, which the atmosphere goes out, and you lose it. So it's very difficult to create an atmosphere.
It was. I quite enjoyed it though. I think I'd definitely go there again.
What were the Surrey supporters like?
Yeah, they were all right.
Yeah, as good as the Quins boys.
They were.
Girls?
No, I would say the Quins feel like they got a little bit more, just a bit more humour. I don't know. No, it's a bit harsh. Sarries fans are a bit like Sarries the club. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
A bit kind of clinical.
Yeah.
And a bit kind of win at all costs.
Yeah.
Whereas Harlequins, I feel like, they're the kind of the fancy dans from southwest London. You know that. You know what I mean?
They've got that fancy dan confidence.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
But I liked it, and I don't want to be disrespectful to Saracens fans because we were sat next to some great guys actually and had a bit of banter. Because boys, I don't know if I mentioned, I did the stuff for the ITV highlights on Wednesday. So,
were there any highlights?
There were. Well, there were lots of highlights of me going, "Oh, they've just scored again." So, if anyone's interested in the old ITV highlights, check it out next Wednesday. They should have a few clips of me looking really cold. I had to wear my bubble hat all game because it was so cold. But I did have some Sarries fans behind me, and I did say to them, I'm going to be doing this these selfies during the game, and they were good value.
Were you wearing thermal leggings?
I had
some of the players.
I didn't have did not have my long johns on, unlike some of the players. But I did actually have a kind of a warm base layer on, and to be honest, by the end, I wish I had a few more layers. I was on the edge of hypothermia. So. Anyway, it's not about that. So Miles, let's start with you. So, as I said, I thought it was a bit of a weird game. It went up and down a little bit, and ultimately it got quite exciting at the end, and we were pushing for a losing bonus point as well as having just gained the try bonus point. So it actually wasn't quite as bad as we might have thought. But what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think you're right. That was a surprising result at the end. I think I watched the whole game on TV, and I think going into half-time at 22-7 down, I thought this is curtains, and it's only really heading one way.
South?
Yeah, south, exactly that. I mean, Sarries, were they scoring some easy tries? I don't know. They were scoring some excellent tries, and it's really, I don't watch Sarries much, we never really do we? But what was interesting was they were running some extremely fast running lines and penetrating us round the outside, through the inside, and picking lots of gaps. And that's a Sarries I haven't seen for quite a few years, to be honest with you. So no longer was it watching boring Sarries clinical of old. They had some great runners, as well as the old stalwarts of Itoje and Willis, etc. And I was surprised there were some clinical tries in the first half that any side in the league would have struggled to defend against. And on top of that, lack of penetration in the first half from Bristol through an absolute brick wall of a Sarries defence. They obviously got a pummelling last week at Bath. It must have had a bit of a talking to by Mark McCall, and they tightened up their defence immensely. There was, some ill discipline and drop balls from Bristol, but their defence was just sublime. Yeah,
I mean, from where I was sat behind the goal posts that we were attacking in the first half, so I saw quite a lot of our play. Unfortunately, not a lot of it was over their line, because we had quite a lot of red zone pressure in the second half of the first half, particularly when Itoje got yellow carded and we were right on the line, and then we just did that thing where I think we had one line out and then we gave away a holding on penalty. But then even then, Fergus Burke sliced one right into the middle of the pitch. So we then got the ball back, and then we were pumping their line again, and then we knocked it on. And then we just, in the end, they got a penalty and scored 3 points. So we were -3. And then Itoje came on, and we were still putting them under a lot of pressure. And then that led to that interception where, I mean, I was kind of just sipping my beer, and I suddenly looked up and saw Itoje galloping like away from me. I mean, it was a funny old gallop. Anyway, and then they scored in the corner, and I couldn't see quite what happened with that. But then when I looked at the highlights, I realised it was Toji ran half the first half
did.
the length of the pitch, and then they had like one phase.
Did
and
a
then,
nice little
and then
dummy
Willis,
as well,
and then
yeah.
Willis ran the second half
Well,
the
he
length
ran
of the
through
pitch
it. It was
on
a
the
bit-
other touchline.
yeah.
And
I mean, that was a pivotal moment.
Yeah,
really,
it
wasn't
was,
it? You
certainly.
think, like, you know, obviously Genji tried to pop it inside to Gloucester, didn't he?
Yeah.
Toji gets it. And you think then we've gone from, well, it's gone out to 22-7, and it actually could have been 15-14 at half time.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we would have won the game, but if you're only a point down at the break as opposed to 15.
Yeah, I mean, it was
it's a
interesting. Our red zone efficiency was completely off, whereas Sarries probably had 6 visits or so, and they were clinical, and they got that number of tries. You're right. I mean, we were camped on their line for 5 minutes, picking and go. You could just argue it's just great defence, or because you're playing that jeopardy game of zigzagging from side to side. I think what you said was ultimately too many hands on the ball and we dropped it.
Yeah.
And that happened quite a few times. And another one, we were heading over on a maul, driving maul, and then we obstructed and they were given a penalty. So, you know, we didn't really sort of pat ourselves on the back. There were 2-3 opportunities camped on their 5 metre line, and ultimately nearly ended up down the other end of the pitch.
It was
a tough old night.
My impression in the first half was that we went 14-0 down quite quickly.
Yeah.
And that was based on us having quite a lot of possession, and then just as you said, not really getting anywhere, and then turning it over, and then them sort of scoring, being quite clinical. And I did feel at that time, I had that it's not our night sort of feeling.
I think so.
But it wasn't quite the same feeling as the Sale game, because I did feel that there was still some opportunities, and particularly in that second half of the first half, you know, Sarries were really on the rack, and you know they did defend really, really well, but they also got a little bit of the rub of the green in just terms of luck. I'm not saying that nothing else, but just on another day we could have quite easily scored 2 tries in that second period. So at half time, although it was disappointing, I still felt there was something, and I knew we had a strong bench. We definitely had a stronger bench than them, and their fly half is a bit erratic. I mean, on one he scored a good try, but also he sliced one, and I felt as though there was an opportunity there where a few chinks might come in their defence, whereas against Sale it just felt that there was never any chinks at any point in that game. So it was a bit annoying, that swing that you said, Lee, about that not scoring, but I still was quite positive at half time.
Can I just say, I do feel like we need to address the elephant in the room,
Yeah.
and that's selection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's something we got to talk about, because our listeners
Yeah,
would
yeah,
expect
that's
us to
fair
do
enough.
this, right? Personally, and it's nothing against any players, on a personal level basis, I think this might have been a step too far for young Worsley at 10. I do. I just feel, I know it's a balancing act that Pat has got to get right, because he's a young lad who needs game time. We all agree on that. But I just felt Sarries away. It's a big task. We've said that. We don't ever win there. We never win there.
No, you might as well try something different. Yeah.
So I just felt it. To me, it would have been probably the safer option to play Big Jimmy.
Jimmy at 10.
At 10.
Yeah.
And then Ravovo comes into the centre, and I just feel, or you could play him on the wing, because another thing that I'm thinking about is we've lost Gabs for 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Potentially.
I feel that our system works so well with Gabs in it, right? He scores tries, he just phenomenal stuff on the pitch. But I kind of feel the closest player to him that we've got in the squad is Calavetti. Yeah. And it would, you know what I mean? I just think we could tweak it a bit.
Yeah.
So that we could still play the Gabs way with a bit more, maybe a bit more solidity at 10 with Jimmy. And we could have gone from there. So I don't know what you guys think. That's just my own personal opinion. And it's nothing against Worsley. He needs game time, I know.
And I mean, to be honest, being there live, he acquitted himself really well.
Yeah.
I thought in the first half. I mean, as someone I couldn't kind of see what was going on all the time, and obviously you get a much better perspective on TV. But he certainly wasn't shirking anything, and I think they clearly were going to target him. I mean, they're not stupid,
and they did,
and he did really step up as best he could. But I think the interesting thing is, you're right. It's how it kind of upset the balance. You could make an argument, and I think a couple of people have made this on socials, is that we broke up the Bernard, the JVR, Ravovo centre partnership that, albeit didn't work much against Sale, but it had worked quite well in the other games as a way of kind of getting Jimmy back in to centre. And, it was a toss-up, really. And rather than putting Jimmy at 10, which, again, would have been a little bit of a gamble. Yeah. But, maybe just, he is an old head. And he has played 10, and he played 10 in the Championship. And we haven't seen him at 10 much. But, it's weighing up. Do we go with the kind of the fantastic youth, who's made a great start to his career, but has had quite a pressurised last game, and start with him to give him more game time, or do we go with a slightly safer or slightly less risky option?
I think with Jimmy, it's the length of the kicks and it's what he can do with the ball.
Yeah, but then maybe if the game plan is that there wasn't going to be much kicking from 10, and it was still going to be the popping round and the little kind of the missed passes and the pop rounds the back, and Sam's been training on that.
What do you think?
Maybe. I mean, a week ago, we wouldn't have had any choice, would we? Yeah. I mean, we there was that injury to AJ, and all the fans have been saying we need another 10 pretty quickly. If that Burn loan hadn't come in literally within 2 days, I think you're right. We would have had to go for Jimmy starting and Worsley on the bench at 10. Yeah. But Pat was given that slight sort of boost, wasn't he, with Harry Burn coming in, albeit. So he said post-match he had one training session.
Yeah, it's too much.
But such is the quality of him. It's too much to start potentially. And they did target. Lazowski just targeted Worsley, and that was inevitable. We think all teams are going to now, aren't they?
Yeah, they will.
And when we saw Byrne come on at 44 minutes, I mean, you said, Pete, he's an absolute unit. He's just a bigger lump and tall, really. And
I wouldn't say he's a lump. I'd say he's a physical
thoroughbred.
He was a thoroughbred.
Thoroughbred.
He looked like a thoroughbred.
And it was evident quite quickly that he had a boot on him, and he just knew really, had quick hands, and he's an experienced, not fourth choice, unfortunately, Leinster player at the moment. So I think you're right. Nothing against Worsley, but probably the choice of the start yesterday was suddenly turned on a knife edge the minute we signed Harry Burn.
I mean, it's interesting, and I might go to a couple of short, sharp summaries straight away, because a few people have kind of raised this, and so we had Steve Hamilton, who came on and said, we need a new rudder at 10, which we know we've got, and Sarri's exposed our weaknesses. We have to control territory far more effectively, and I think that's not necessarily personnel. I think that might be a little bit game plan as well, and actually we did kick a little bit more on, especially the first half, so I think they had added a little bit of a layer of pragmatism. So I think actually Steve's right, but I think there was elements of that already being shown on Saturday. And then John Wood, big friend of the pod, he said not a criticism of Sam at all. He's a really good player and has a bright future and should never, and really we should try and protect him and not expose him too much. So he even did a limerick in his to summarise this. So this is a kind of critique limerick, or an analysis limerick, like they all are, I suppose. Regarding this game's aftermath, Bears were slow to recruit. Regarding this game's aftermath, Bears were slow to recruit a fly half. They are brave to a man and do all that they can, but you must be having a laugh. Not quite sure about what, but I think it was. I think what he said, and I actually think, in some ways, to counter what John says, I think after that Sale game, as you just said, Lee, Pat got on the blower pretty quick, and that was pretty impressive.
That was,
because a lot of people were to get in that quality straight away, and I think that proved the point. And then I think we had someone else had said, what else we said? We had, Nick Howell. He sent a very punchy post.
Yeah. And do you know what I liked about that, actually, is the passion.
Yeah, it was passionate. And he backed it up with stats.
Yeah.
And he basically said, it's clear from Gloucester beating Sale, which obviously they did on Saturday, and us looking a bit rudderless and ineffective, despite having a large amount of possession on Saturday. And he backed this up with stats. I mean, we 56% possession, 54.5% territory, but 170 passes. Saracens had 186 tackles to 120 from us, about the same missed tackles. They kicked from hand 23, we only did 10, but they made 12 clean breaks, we only made 7. We had 17 turnovers.
Yeah.
And then penalties conceded was about equal. He's kind of making the point that, you know, we did have kind of domination in certain areas that we clearly just didn't convert into points. And I spent the whole of the second part of the first half, as I said to you, just watching us on our camp on their line and not getting anywhere. And it happens sometimes. It's difficult.
Constructive criticism is what we're talking about, and I think that's fair. And as Nick's done there, he's backed up with stats, and the stats don't lie, do they?
I mean, he said that he's kind of going a bit further and saying he didn't think Sale was necessarily a blip. Although I think the fact that we scored and looked dangerous at times against Sarries and did put them under a bit of pressure at the end suggested that we were back to kind of a competitive level. But there was, he does say there, the selection perhaps meant that it led to a lack of penetration with the ball and our defence was passive at the best. He said we looked miles off a top 4 team. Mind you, having watched Saints this afternoon, play against Bath, but I think it's really hard to make judgments about whether a team is in the top 4 until we actually get to the final top 4.
Yeah, I can see where he's coming from, but it's also tough to do it.
Yeah,
when you've got that frustration as well. I think we all agree, and I think sometimes the passion and the frustration can kind of make it seem a lot worse than what it actually is. To be honest, I don't think we're a million miles away. I think Byrne, with some training sessions behind him, I think probably comes into 10. And I think what a player to step in, as long as he stays fit. I know we've still got personnel out, but like we've said, we've got one more big game in the Premiership, taking Benetton aside, because we all know about that. One more big game, and then we've got the Six Nations. And then we've got our injured players coming back. Yeah. And what's to say we're back in our groove again?
I agree. I mean, I think if you look at the big picture, it isn't.
I mean, don't forget, we had some proper youngsters in the second row. We had Dunny, who's a stalwart now, but we had Hodgson start. Yeah. And then he went off at about sort of 40 minutes. And then we had the Premiership debut for Steele Barker. I mean, these are going up against Itoje and the like, aren't they? And Willis.
World international.
World-class internationals. So hats off to these youngsters. They stepped up and tried their best yesterday, and that's all we ask of the team. They played as an absolute unit, and we nearly took them to task. So I don't, a mild blip at best, to be honest with you, but there is light at the end of the tunnel.
We're still second in the table, right? I know the pack closed on us, but we're still second in the table, and definitely me for one, I would have bitten your hand off for that going into New Year.
100%. Yeah. Considering we were written off at the beginning of the season by most pundits of being at best
7 or 8, didn't we? And we got not many teams will take a point or two off Sarries at Stonex, will they?
Yeah. So 2 points I'd also say is I think one thing we've got to acknowledge is that some Sarries players had some really good games as well. Tom Willis had a game of his life.
Oh, come on.
So we
phenomenal.
And I mean he that does rise a team. I mean Jamie George was on his 300th cap.
Tompkins was good.
Tompkins,
Van Zyl, he's played
even
Itoje 80 minutes at number 9.
And Itoje make that break. I mean they also individually stepped up and played well. And it's hard to
reeled off 6 names straight away off the top of your head. So
So I think the fact that we took them to the wire, almost to the wire, was actually a good. And it was good to see us have a strong finish when the bench came. And we suspected that our bench would do that because they did look stronger on paper. And it was interesting. And so I think we do have to doff our cap a little bit to Saracens and some of their players. But also, we had to doff our caps to Sale last week. And, we, as you said, it wasn't, it isn't too, it hasn't hurt us too much. in terms of the
I
league.
mean, we could have been down in fourth, couldn't we, at the end of the weekend,
And,
if the results didn't go our way.
And we know it kind of shows how good the first half of the season has been for us, and we know we can do it.
Yeah.
And just because Sale shut us down and Saracens have shut us down, but we dominated Quins, we dominated Leicester, we dominated Saints, we should have beaten Gloucester. We should have beaten Saracens the first time round. So we know it's in our locker. And I think we just got to... It is frustrating because we want some success and we want consistency. And we feel like a lot of the time we think, look, we're a massive club and we've got a massive support and we've got a massive owner and we've got a huge personality, we've got a world-class... we've got some great players, and we've got, and it is frustrating when it doesn't quite work. And I think we just have to be patient because it is at least it's trying to be exciting rugby. And part of me felt, and the other thing I was going to say is that I just kind of felt that we've got to that kind of halfway stage of the season, and actually sometimes you do need a little bit of a reboot and a little refresh, and we've done so well to get this far. I think that as I said, there were hints of like a little bit more pragmatism, a few more box kicks than we've seen before, a couple of grubbers through, and I do think that now the coaches, I reckon, will be working furiously on a sort of, like, people have said we don't have a plan B, but we've got a lot of plan A, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3. But I do wonder.
I feel we're a team in transition of a plan B.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't think we're a million miles off it. But you're the school teacher, Pete.
Yeah.
How, if you were marking Bristol Bears paper, halfway point of season, what will we be? For me, probably B+.
Yeah. I was going to say, given our demographic of most of our listeners, I'll have to stick with the old school letters for GCSEs rather than the numbers.
And age,
if I say it's a 7, you'll think, well, what's that mean? I mean, and I know that a 7 is kind of like the AB borderline.
Right.
But I would say that probably a 7 is... I mean, you need a 6 really to get into to do A-levels, to get into sixth form. So we're already in the top 4. So I'd say a minimum of 7, which I think is a B+. I think I agree with you. I think I would have gone A- if we hadn't have been bageled against Sale.
Yeah.
And I think not scoring against Sale, it was a bit of a shocker. So I would say B+. But if we were writing the report, we'd do the classic, a fine effort, lots of endeavour, but just a little lack of clarity and understanding.
I thought you were actually going to say room for improvement.
I was going to say, as always,
that's almost worth a cliche bell in itself, isn't it?
And room for improvement. Because if there's no room for improvement, you may as well not bother.
Exactly. You'd be
And
top
I've
of the
always
league,
thought
wouldn't you?
B+ has always been quite a positive grade.
Yeah.
I would say.
Because it's going upwards, isn't it? It's not looking down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're there. Anyway, I had a second point I was going to make, and I can't remember what it was now. Maybe it was that. It was the kind of, it feels like it's time for a little bit of a change. And I think with Harry Byrne coming, who I thought, again, we've said this looked good, maybe he'll get some game time in Europe. We really, really need to make sure we win against Newcastle Falcons and preferably get a 5 points. I just think, we can reboot, we can regenerate.
I think with Byrne, we'll definitely play more in the opposition's half. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, one of the things I was saying to Miles is that in that second half, we were on our 22. We were on our line defending. So that was right in front of me as well. Because in the first half, it was quite good. I had quite a good time because I saw most of our team, like eyeball to eyeball. But we started trying to run it out of our 22. And it was seeing it that close up was quite scary. It was really, and Byrne was getting it from Randall and Marmion, and was literally just firing it out sideways without looking. And I was thinking, that guy's that's brave. He's had one training session. And I was thinking, and the Sarries fans around me were going, what are they doing? I was like, no, but there was one moment where we almost made it. You could see what the theory is that if you drag their defence in, and if you're so confident you're not going to drop it, there was one moment where we almost found a gap. And if we'd broken through, there was just acres of space beyond. So,
and that's why Gabs has been so successful because
you're right.
We've done that effectively at the first half of this season. And Gabs is the type of guy, you get on the ball like that, you create that space, and then once he's got the ball in his hand with acres in front of him, he's away.
And I mean, Ravovo came on, went straight onto the wing,
and scored.
Try.
Yeah,
that's the guy,
penetrated on the outside channel and just muscled over, didn't he?
The whole basis of what I'm saying is that if we've got a ready-made replacement in our squad ready for what Gabs is doing.
So what we're saying is that if we were going to go early on selection for Benetton next Sunday, one of the things we think we'll see to set us up is Jimmy and
JVR stay in the centre,
and Rav on one wing, and Jack Bates on the other. Jack Bates again had as what Miles would say, a very solid game. He looks class at that level. So I'm loving the fact that he's getting.
I think
game
so.
time
And
there.
Heward on the bench, he needs a bit more game time. He's only just come up from injury, but and he was up against some beasts to try and defend against.
Yeah,
so let's give him some slack.
He's a great player.
He's a lot better.
He was a bit rusty. He
He
was a bit ring rusty.
He did make an amazing cover tackle,
but
at one
he did
point,
And I think the thing is, the poor lad is his first game back, so it's going to be hard to get up to match kind of speed that quickly on a plastic pitch wearing tights. I mean, at one point, I'm sure he looked like he didn't know whether he was supposed to be at the pantomime or playing for Bears.
I think you're right. I think back on the grass, coming off the bench, he'll be a lethal weapon, which he was last season, wasn't he? So,
I do. It's just on that note, we might have discussed this before, but do you think there is a little bit of chat in the changing room about who's wearing the tights and the reasons for it? Because Saracens had a couple of players, but I mean,
it's cold.
I'd never see Jimmy Williams wearing tights.
You'd never see Ellis Genge wearing tights.
It'd be hard to get it over his backside.
He did have some great patches on his knees.
I do wonder what the rationale is.
Yeah, I know. It's almost. I don't know. It's kind of.
Do you think got a letter from their mum saying, I please
wrap up warm this winter?
Noah's mum, please excuse Noah for wearing shorts tonight because he's quite got soft skin.
Do you know what though? I think for especially the players coming back from injuries, there is a kind of theory that you do need that bit of extra warmth in your legs. I can kind of see.
But it's a bit like
where players like you are coming from.
Do you think it slows you down like a millisecond? Like, because there's a bit more resistance, air resistance.
Well, I suppose,
Well, then maybe
Heward got pummeled a couple of times, so it was a nice bit of padding when he hit the deck.
I know, I do. I just wonder, when is this announced? They're all sitting in the changing room just before, and then just at the last minute, Rich Lane goes into his bag and gets his tights out, puts them on, and no one notices.
Or
do you think they're hung up behind their shirts secretly?
I was going to say, does the kit man do that right just before before they come in from
Gives
practice?
Gives them a wink. Rich Lane says you can pull out the sides.
Who's put those? I may as well use them. Seeing as that,
or there's a little T,
big T-shirt,
a little T on the young dressing on the hooks.
I don't know. I'd like to know the rationale of why some players
I don't know.
wear them. I understand why, but then if it was that bad, everybody'd be wearing them. That's the thing.
That's true.
Max Malin's always wore them, didn't he, for Sarries and us?
Yeah, but you can understand that playing on that 4G week in, week out, because Sinti was playing them. Segun, Sarries players, there was a few, weren't there?
Yeah.
Maybe it's like you've got to have a certain equivalent of hairy legs, like a certain percentage.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
You are, because if you've got hairy legs, actually wearing the tights can make you more streamlined.
Maybe if you got not enough body fat,
and actually it gives you that one. It's the one excuse you have to going streamlining, because you can either do it at Gloucester or Newcastle and Saracens. You can use the excuse of hairy legs because of and then kind of pretend it's the plastic pitch. No, I that's interesting. Anyway. Don't know how we got onto that.
Someone will come up with something. One of our listeners will come up with some stats.
Anyway, so I don't know what more to say. I thought I could read. Actually, I had a few listener things. I could read them out now. Shall I do that? And then you come in with the last couple of comments.
Yeah.
So we've done it. We had Robin Hambley, who came in, and to be honest, Robin immediately just does limericks now without being asked. And I think that because he's so consistent,
did we time him after? Because last time
it was pretty close. This one. I think we have to crown him the new Bears Beyond the Gate Poet Laureate. It's a permanent position that he's been given.
I thought we were doing that.
Unpaid position, mind.
I thought we were doing that at the end of the season.
Well, I think he's already just he's on the throne. He's taken it. He's created his own job description and put it in there. So here we go. Here's Robin's one straight off the game. Bears went away to face them Sarries. Tried our best but couldn't get the carries. Willis was immense. The ending was tense. A bonus point is crucial when the end of season tallies.
It's too good. That's
It's too good, isn't it?
Nice, yeah.
It's too good.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then we also had our son John Wood. We did say at Funky House R&B, which of course is our friend Debs from Keynsham, from K-Town.
K-Town.
She happened to be sitting about 3 seats away from me when I got there. So we had a nice little chat, and I could hear her. When I do the clips for ITV, there's one clip where you can just hear her going, Bristol in the background. It's brilliant. So I hope they flew that. But anyway, she got back to me and said, 16 injuries at the last count. Oh, this isn't a poem, by the way. So given that yesterday's point was crucial, give the kids a go, and we regroup with a stronger 15 in the Premiership versus Falcons with a couple of emojis when they're praying.
Yeah.
Sarries fans around us were very friendly and appreciated we'd made the journey.
Yeah,
And
fair play.
Deb was wearing her John Player.
she was. Oh,
trophy top.
yeah,
it's
she's
class.
wearing that.
Well done, Deb.
Yeah, she was
Representing
good.
as always.
We then also had Robert Collins got involved in the short, sharp summaries. It wasn't a acrostic or anything, but he just said we were too one-dimensional after Plan A goes awry. So we've kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And he said actually for both men and women's, it's part of the Bears' philosophy being persistent with a certain style and not being able to adapt. ? So he's just raising this question. And then his next question is how seriously do we take the next 2 games in Europe? Do we go with a side to gain experience, or do we actually try and get a result? Well,
What do we do?
I don't know. We'll come on to that in a sec.
Yeah.
And then Paul Mizzen, we now know his granddad, Paul.
Granddad.
He said it's a game of 2 halves, fly halves and outside halves. Both ain't half important. That's good.
That's very good.
That's just knowledge. That's just,
Actually, sorry to just butt in.
Yeah.
I meant to say I did have a really good limerick from John Silverthorne,
Big John.
but I did forget it.
Okay,
I
next time.
did forget it, but maybe next time John can. The start of it was fantastic. So maybe John can send that in to us again.
But we did have one negative comment. It's not often we have really negative
we
ones.
did.
As in the
the game
about
plan?
Bristol. It wasn't directly to us, but it was actually sent to us by our Irish Connacht Bears fan, and it was something that was posted by an Irish freelance writer called Caelan SR Rugby.
Oh, I know.
And he said, I don't rate Bristol and their Poundland version of Jouet.
That's harsh.
I don't think
for emphasis.
cultural appropriation. No, I don't think it would have gone down well. But that's interesting. So a bit harsh, I think. And I think he said that because he's a Munster fan. And Sarries are playing
facing
Munster. So he
Sarries,
said,
that's right.
but Munster will be wary of Sarries watching this game. So he wasn't impressed with us, was he?
Well, so he's watched us once.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we
It's
can
out
just
of context.
Yeah, we can just.
It's out of context. But, I feel like it'd be nice to come back later in the season and see how we got on with our Poundland
We should
versus
start
Jouet.
following it on X.
Exactly. So, obviously, I think we've done enough on Sarries. People have watched it. I think there's 2 schools of thought. Because I did the post article quite quickly today.
Yeah,
but the point I made was that it was an improvement on the Sale game.
Yeah.
By quite a long way. And actually, the point is that they were pretty good. But when you look at the big picture, we're still in the hunt, and we've got. I think I said the 2 European games are a kind of time to kind of reboot and reflect, and then we go hard on Falcons, and then if we start post Six Nations with everyone fit and right at the top of the table, we've got everything to play for.
We're a different squad again.
So I feel like I've come out of the weekend with a positive spin on things, but recognising that there were still frailties there and slight concerns with regards to defence and being a little bit too predictable, and worrying that maybe some teams have worked it out. But let's be honest, Sale and Sarries are the 2 teams that have got the best rush defences really historically. So we may not come across that for a few more games now.
The way I'd sum that up is the way I feel personally is the fact is we've got a lot more positives than we've got negatives.
Yeah.
This isn't us doing a pod when we've had defeat after defeat. We've been booting the ball up in the air and none of us can see any clarity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a different pod. That even in defeat, we're sat around the table and we're still finding positives.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And Sam Worsley will be a positive.
Yeah.
He definitely is a player for the future, you know? And I think even in defeat, we can still go on with that basis.
100%.
I'm looking forward to the second half of the season.
Yeah,
talking about positives though, Miles, the Bristol Bears social media following ship has gone up by millions in the last few weeks.
I'm glad you're putting the positive spin on
we
that.
know that because of that, this is because of the genius signing, to be fair, of Ilona Maher. And of course, much to great fanfare, she made her debut off the bench today at Ashton Gate. Nearly 10,000 tickets sold. I mean, that is a fantastic
Mr. Clark was
effort,
one of
and
them.
Miles was one of them.
Yeah.
I was going to go, but I didn't get back from
That's all right.
Hartbury too late. So I did watch most of it on TV. Ultimately, it was a bit of a disappointment. Gloucester Hartbury kind of powered their way to victory. I don't know, what was the final score, Miles? It was 40 odd.
17 Bristol, 40 Gloucester Hartbury.
And Ilona came on, and she came on at the wing, and I'm not 100% convinced she actually touched the
I'm
ball.
not convinced she touched the ball as well.
She got involved in quite a few rucks. And I think for her, she needs to get that first one under the belt and just get the feel for being on the pitch. And, she's, they obviously... I know we might be cynical, but I don't think they would put her on or put her in the squad if they didn't think that she had the potential.
I don't think so. I mean,
as Matt Crete would say, she's got the right minerals.
Well, I'd say, even if she didn't touch the ball, she's already done her job. Yeah, 9,240.
9,240. Exactly.
So even without touching the ball, she's already...
I mean, hats off to Bristol Sport and the media team. They're loving this, and they've done a fantastic job of getting her involved and getting her on the bench. And the minute she got put on the bench, that probably was another 1,000 tickets sold. Yeah. So hats off to them.
But is there a slight concern that the women's team are following a very similar style of trying to get hands on ball the whole time? But, and I think personally, having watched it this afternoon, this was exposed a little bit by Gloucester, whose forwards were just quicker to the breakdown. I mean, the second half they had 3 or 4 consecutive turnover penalties that they kicked to a corner, and we just looked like we just lacked a little bit of penetration in the midfield, which kind of sounds a little bit like what happened at Saracens and Sale with the men.
I think you're right. I mean, let's not forget that Gloucester Hartbury are the reigning PWR champions.
For a reason.
For a reason. And Pete and I watched them last year, and they were as dominant. Their defence was just really, really good. And you're right. The difference is their forwards can just penetrate that line, and they would just take out 5-6 players and make a 10-metre gain on the line. And we didn't really have any answers to that. Our answer was to ship it to the outside channels, and a great try by Millie David and who else scored?
Elisa Butcher. That was a great try because she threw a dummy, and the Gloucester Hartbury there literally her legs got tangled up and she fell over because she got sold the dummy. She went running. It was. I mean, I felt a bit sorry for her, but it was quite funny.
Yeah, so, it was great. And a penalty from Holly Aitchison. But other than that, there were some tries out on the wide channels. Holly struggled to hit the target, and then we were, despite being 2 tries to their 1, it was only a 10-7 score at half time. They came out and were just firing all cylinders, really, just dominated. And despite our substitutes, Simi Pam had played a blinder. She's such a strong carrier in the ball, but she got isolated, almost too good, because her support players aren't there quick enough. And then you've got the Gloucester Hartbury players and Jacqueline galore. The amount of penalties they got in the second half must have reached 4, 5, 6. Kick to the sidelines, and I think every really line out, they got another try and another try and another try, and it just proves that they're the champions for the reason. They were just dominant, really. I don't really... You can play that game again and again and again. I'm not sure how we're going to face teams that good and really succeed.
Would you say that Gloucester had more clarity on the day than they... As a team, they all know.
I think they just had... They had more power.
It's dominance.
And I think they just were clinical. And they They targeted the breakdown exactly at the right times. Now, I'm sure every team tries to do that, or will, not every team will come out and say we're going to target the breakdown, and we're trying to turn the ball over. But they just did it really well in the second half. It was somebody came off the bench. She did about 3 in a row.
Yeah, she did.
And they just. It's like we ran out of huff and puff. We ran out of steam, really.
We did.
We at times looked really good, but my concern is there are now clearly 5 top teams in that league, and only 4 are going to get in the playoffs. Yeah. And we're going to have to work really, really hard to be that 5th team. And at the moment, it's going to be a struggle.
We've got the number of ball carries and passes was probably off the scale for Bristol, a bit like the men's game this afternoon. However, against that Gloucester Hartbury defence, they were pretty ineffectual, and we just couldn't penetrate the line. So you're right, Pete. We've got no points today. We face Leicester at home in 2 weeks' time, and you and I watched that big game up at Twickenham, the Quins Leicester Christmas game, where actually, which is brilliant, the women's team drew an 18,000 crowd or something like that. Okay, you could say they were in their seats for the next game, but that is just great for the PWR. And again today, hats off to we get 9,200 down Ashton Gate. But that Leicester team were no mugs. They nearly took Harlequins to the wire. So the women cannot take their foot off the gas in 2 weeks' time. And that is going to be a tough gig.
And I would say it was fantastic to get 9,000 in the ground today, but that can only be backed up by a team that's winning.
Yeah, you're right.
We've got to, at the end of the day, we've always said this, we always do, sport is a results game. Yeah. It's a results business as well. And at some point, you have to get those. So... yeah, but we'll be down. I think we're going to think about going to that Leicester game.
Yeah, the atmosphere today was great. As you can, the crowd noise was huge. The whole of the Dome was full, and a bit of the South Stand. There was shirt firing at half time, whistles, cheering, the whole lot. And it's just great for the sport. Yeah. So, let's hope, get on down Ashton Gate again in a couple of weeks.
Well, we did have a secondary limerick from Robin Hambley as Poet Laureate. He obviously felt that he has to pen something for every game now, which is brilliant. So he actually sent us a picture of his daughters with Ilona Maher after the game. Yeah. And here's his limerick. It was Hartbury arrived to a rammed Ashton Gate, and straight away their D was great. Eldest Hambley child Iona got to meet the star that's Ilona. But ultimately, Gloss take the spoils, and that's going to grate. You're not poet laureate for nothing.
No, that's right. No, he's earned the title, and it needs someone to knock him off that now.
Yeah.
Nothing from Marcus Watts, because
Marcus
Watts is up. He's up in those upper echelons of.
We did get one.
Maybe he's on holiday.
Carwyn Jones.
Oh yeah.
And he said, and it was a kind of hybrid post about both games. He said a tale of 2 very talented Burns this weekend. Ooh. Harry was calm and composed, while Sarah was excellent in the set piece and carrying. I like it. I like what he's done there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Pragmatism is required if we are to challenge at the end of the season, brackets, for both men and female teams. So I think that's quite a nice little summary to finish off this segment of the podcast episode. And at that point, I suddenly remembered that this is a good time to remind people that, subscribe. And if you want to get in touch, the people that haven't already got in touch, you can use our Twitter feed, which is Bears Beyond Gate, or at Bears Beyond Gate. We've got a burgeoning Instagram account. We also have a Facebook page, which I don't look at that often, so I need to start looking at that a bit more. And we can be contacted at bearsbeyondthegate@gmail.com.
Do we still do Instagram, boys?
Yeah.
I've been active on Instagram, mate.
The only reason I asked is because
I did a little real live today at the game that was followed by a few people. I need to just brush up on my skills, really.
Well done, fellas. Right, we got a story to tell, Pete.
Yep.
This is a story that you need to tell.
Yep.
Because I think the listeners need to know.
Yep.
You're on your way to Saracens.
Yep.
You jump in the motor.
Yep. I know.
Where'd you stop? Reading Services.
So I get to Reading Services, but by the way, it's the most extortionate. And I had a free, luckily, on my Costa app, I had a free drink.
Oh, lucky you.
So I had a large latte.
I suppose it's not banned at services.
Well, I know.
There's a veto.
I mean, a large latte is like about 10 quid. So I got that for free.
I'm surprised you even stopped there, Pete. There you.
Well, I knew
You
I
must have needed fuel.
Well, I knew I had a free one. I knew there was a Costa there. But yes, of course. Now, having stopped, I then sat down and had to think about things, and I suddenly realised
Check your pockets.
that one of the things that I tried to get organised for the Sarries game, because I knew I was going, was to organise a huge Bears Beyond the Gate flag, which I managed to get to organise, and it is big.
Yeah.
And
we're not
managed to
talking
get it.
man big, or
No,
we're
we're talking like
proper.
Yeah. And anyway, cut a long story short, I worked hard to. I saw a guy on Facebook who was doing it, and I got it, and I thought I'd get it organised, and it got delivered on Friday, so the day before.
Just in time.
And I got it out. I was really proud. I sent you boys a picture of it. It was
Yeah,
like the size of my
brilliant,
bed. Anyway, cut a long story short. Guess what? I forgot it. I left it at home, and so unfortunately, I was.
It looks a bit like. Is it called the Shroud of Turin? Or something? You're going to wrap all three of us in by the size of
I
it.
should say at this point it's now started raining.
Yeah,
so people are going to hear
the noise.
We're in the Beer Factory taproom tent area.
It's atmospheric.
Yeah,
I love it.
So yeah. I mean, the bad news is that was poor from me, because where I was sat at Saracens, I was literally like I could have draped it over just behind the goal line, and because Bristol basically spent all of the time either attacking and not scoring, or
we would have
defending,
seen it.
We would have seen it on TNT. But it's a long-term project, boys. There will be other opportunities to take. I mean, we could take it to the home games.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it round.
We could wrap it round
as a blanket
when it gets cold.
in the Dolman stand.
So it was a failed attempt at guerrilla marketing at StoneX, but at least the intent was there. So I apologise. Right, anyway, let's move on, because we've got to move on quickly. We have got one more game to talk about, which is the game against Benetton.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
Next weekend.
It's the third game in the Champions Cup. We are sitting bottom of the table, having lost to big European heavyweights already, and La Rochelle and Leinster.
Yeah.
We've got a home game against Benetton, and we've got the away game against Claremont. And we I don't think we'll go into whether there is a discussion to be had maybe outside the pod about whether we target these or whether we just use these as an opportunity to integrate Harry Byrne, maybe give some of the youngsters more game time and not worry too much. I think the one thing we've got to be careful we don't do is get dumped out of both cups again like we did last year.
Yeah.
I haven't quite got my head round the qualifying criteria, but I think if we lose everything, there's a good chance we will.
Yeah.
And I think we still need to have some sort of skin in the game of a cup competition that we have already won.
Yeah.
But anyway, rather than us talk about Benetton, we decided to get in touch with Andy Uren, who obviously plays for Benetton and is a big part of their squad. And as a way of kind of not really previewing the game, but kind of just using it as an excuse to chat to Andy, we did a little Zoom chat with Andy on Thursday night, and we kind of talked about various things, including like when he left Bears and some of his memories of the Bears, but also we did ask him about the game and what we might expect. So rather than us talk about it, I think that we should to play the interview now and take it from there. So here we go. I thought we'd just start with just a couple of sort of general questions. I mean, I've seen that the URC, you've got a bit of a break now at the moment, haven't you, for sort of 10 days or so?
Yeah, so we had this week off. So I'm actually going up to the mountains tomorrow morning, which will be quite nice, and playing Bristol, obviously, next week. And then I think for the Six Nations, we're pretty chilled. We've got a few games, but nothing. It's quite nice, really. So, yes, it's nice.
I think what we'll do is sort of go back to like how it all happened for you to go to Benetton. It was March 23, and you just signed a 3-year contract, and then it was kind of announced that you were then going to sort of rip that up, as it were, and go off to Benetton. But how did that all come about, and so on?
Yeah, it was very random. I think there was stuff which came up probably in the Bristol Post and stuff, which wasn't true.
Yeah.
But so myself, I was just chilling one day watching TV. Obviously, I was very happy with signing for Bristol for a few more years, and then an agent phoned me randomly and was just like, do you want to go eat some pizza in Italy? And I was like, I didn't really. I was just like, I've never really thought about it because I was like, I'm in contract for another 3.5 years at Bristol. And he was just like, well, they're interested. So then a few weeks later, they spoke to Pat. Pat originally said no. From what I recall, what I got told, Pat said no to the agent. And then I think Rands was pushing the England team, playing really well, was captain for a bit. And I thought, I'll go and speak to Pat because I have a very, very good relationship with him. And I was in his office for about an hour. Some tears were probably shed because he was very happy, and he pretty much just said, "Look, if you want to explore it, I won't stand in your way." So then I explored it, came out to Venice with my girlfriend, met the manager and the director and the CEO, and yeah, and it was a beautiful sunny day, so I think that kind of helped as well. And then they told me their vision and stuff. And then I went back to Pat and I just said, this is maybe something I want to explore. And he was just like, he has to speak to the board because obviously I've resigned and being Bristolian. And then they were like, yeah, we'll agree if you really want to leave. So I was really thankful for them. So yeah, it was strange, but really exciting.
I know that. I remember watching. You did a little video thing with Joe Joyce because obviously he had signed at the end of that season. You did a little thing when you were sat on the Avon Gorge Hotel and you were sort of talking about both of you, like your sort of memories and stuff like that, and obviously about to go off. And we also said this to Callum and Dan Thomas about, having been at Bristol for such a long time, what was it like when you had to kind of turn up on the first day of like pre-season or something like that? I mean, it must have been like being the new kid in school, and like I just fascinated to know like how that happened. And were you a bit like Will from the In-Betweeners? You turn up at school with your briefcase and nobody's talking to you. I don't know, what was it like?
It was strange. I got here about a few days before pre-season, and I don't know if you guys remember the Wasp 10 called Jacob Imanga, who's out there now.
Yeah.
So I played against him a few times, spoke with him before I came over, same as Marcus Watson, a few of the boys. And then I met him on the weekend. He actually had a gathering around his house. So I met a fair few of the lads on the Saturday before that. But then I turned up, obviously I couldn't speak the language, and then ended up, similar, it's different to Bristol, is, you ain't got the fancy training ground or the names above your locker and stuff. So I end up sitting in a random changing room, and that's like, and then the Italian lads came in and more Italian lads. And then I realized I was the only English person in this Italian changing room. So I messaged him and I was like, you here? I think I'm in the wrong changing room. And then I realized I had to go to the foreign changing room. So then I spent with all the foreigners. Yeah, so I could understand what they were saying. So yeah, very strange, very hot. So very different, but I enjoyed it. I loved it.
Because I did a quick check for your squad, and there's you, there's Lewis Liner, Jacob, Matt Gallagher, Paolo Adogwu. There's a few like English guys, I guess, or UK. But obviously a lot of them, a lot of the squad are Italian, and a lot of them are the Italian national team. I mean, how does that work with like team meetings and stuff? Is it done? Do they take twice as long because you got to do it in Italian and then do it in English, or just how does it work basically?
Yeah, so Borto is obviously Italian, Marco Bortonami. He's the head coach, but he talks fluent English and fluent Italian. So he'll talk in Italian, and then he'll go straight back to English for the boys who struggle with the language. So he's brilliant with that. And I think that we've got a defence coach who's Scottish. So people like that. So a lot of the coaches, our head S&C is Irish. So you kind of can talk to them in English, and also Borto talks fluent English as well. So it's no problem.
So it hasn't, yeah. And what about your Italian? Have you sort of tried to learn it? Have you learned certain like rugby terms, I guess, for a start?
Yeah. Trying to. I didn't. I was a bit lazy last year, and then I decided to sign here for 3 more years. So now I'm doing one-on-one lessons a week, me and my girlfriend, with a private teacher. So we're trying to learn it, but no parlo molto italiano.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. That sounds GCSE level already. That is that's pretty good. I mean, I got one sort of last question about being there, and I mean, obviously you were kind of firstly, you'd been at Bristol for ages, obviously through the academy, like I guess like right from youth, and then you were kind of part of the whole Pat rebrand and the Bears rebound and the Pat Ram revolution. I mean, how different was it to go to a different club in terms of the way things were done? I mean, was it I mean, I imagine, and we kind of assume it's very structured at Bristol, and we've been kind of told that through various bits and pieces. Is it like that at Benetton, or is it a different sort of style and of organisation?
I think Bristol is structured, but very structured. But when you're playing it, it looks unstructured. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
everyone's in the right places and there's offloads. But that's because there's so much work done behind the scenes. Kind of Pat's like kind of a genius type thing where he has people in positions. I remember Joycey in his first year was still on the wing all the time and he was hating it. But Pat was like, but that's where we need you to mark defenders. There'll be more holes and things like that. So Pat was amazing with that type of stuff. But Italy's is similar. It's not as detailed. But we probably play less of attacking mindset as Bristol, so that makes sense. So we still try and attack the ball as much as possible, but there's less people in certain positions. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah.
But it's we still tried, but I think Bristol was structured, but it was structured like unbelievably well. So yeah.
Because obviously, that was it was a quite exciting for fans. This whole rebrand, but then also buying in these big players like Charles Piutau, Siali Piutau, Semi Randrandra, Stevie Luatu had obviously come before. And you were kind of in the thick of that. I mean, you and Rands were kind of, it was like a 50-50, you were starting, he was starting, you were starting. So you were in the thick of it. I mean, what was it like? What was it like that season, particularly when, it really, the momentum got going? What was it like playing in that team?
Yeah, it was unreal. I think Rams was actually injured a lot that year, and he then got called up to England, and I think he got injured again with England. So
Yeah.
I remember I played a lot of 80 minutes, but like sometimes, obviously coming from Bristol, you're on that pitch and you see Charles do something mental and Semi do something mental, and I was like, how am I on the same pitch with these type of people, And they were both so humble, but look at the team, even like John Ofella, he has a hands like a back, he was an All Black, and Chris Vui at the time was so good. So like it was crazy how much talent there was in that team. It's just such a shame we obviously didn't get it in the semi final, and that still haunts us, well, haunts me still, but it is what it is.
But you played the game, and there's a lot of speculation about what went wrong. We chatted to Dave Atwood and a few previous players, but I noticed that you were subbed at 53 minutes. Do you think that's the reason it all went pear shaped after that?
No, I don't know. I think it was probably a good time for the momentum kind of swift changed. So obviously we started so well. We were 28-5 up at
Yeah, yeah.
halftime. And then they scored, I think, straight off halftime. And then they scored straight after. So I think Pat made the sub, which is completely fine. Rand's a great player to come on and maybe try and bring more energy. So
Yeah.
we flip it again. But obviously, sadly, I don't really know what happened, actually. It was, I still don't know to the day how we ended up coming 28-0 up to losing that semi-final.
No, no. I mean, we've played brilliant and thrashed them on quite a few occasions since. I mean, have you ever chatted to interesting Lewis Liner about that day, on his take on it?
Yeah, one of the first things I said to him is, "Are we going to clear the awkward tension in the room?" Because obviously he scored and started on the wing for them that
Yeah,
week. No, he just said he still doesn't. He was the same. He doesn't know how they won it.
mm,
Everything that stuck for us in the first half and didn't stick for us in the second half stuck for them in the second half. So it's not an excuse, but we should definitely have won that game. I still think from the start, we should have blown them away in the second half, but it is what it is.
What do you miss about the Bears, playing for the Bears, or have you kind of parked that as part of your career and it's done now? Or is there anything you do miss?
No, I wouldn't say I parked it. I think obviously I've re-signed here for 3 more years, so I got 3.5 more years here. I love it. Like I love the country. It's beautiful. The town, Treviso is amazing. The weather's lovely. The training's good. The food's great. So like, there's not much negatives at all about here. But I think there'd always be probably something in my heart, which because I'm from Bristol, I played 158 games. I was in the academy when I was 13. My family still have season tickets there. I think there's still something which I still watch every single game. So there's still something inside of me which wants Bristol to do as well as possible, but who knows what happens in the future, for sure.
Well, talking about coming back, I mean, obviously you are coming back in on the 12th. Well, hopefully you are, and as part of the Benetton squad that are going to play us in the Champions Cup. I mean, part of what this pod's going to be about is about kind of previewing that game. I'll be interested to know what your take is on that, and are you partly yourself personally? How are you gonna sort of cope with playing at Ashton Gate again, but still having to kind of focus 100% on doing a job for your team? And how do you think Benetton as a team you're going to sort of approach the game?
Um, yeah, so for me, it'd be very weird. I think being in the away change room at Ashton Gate will be weird because I've only ever been obviously in the home change room. It'd be nice to be back because I think all my family had come in. I think I've got to get about 25, 30 tickets for my friends as well, family. So that'd be really nice, be a pretty special occasion. But then I think my family, I think my dad would probably still want Bristol to win, but me to play well, which is understandable. But and then how would I approach it? We've had the week off, so I don't know. We're coming Monday, but for me, I obviously they probably got the best attack in the world at the moment. They got some unbelievable players. Obviously, AJ's injured, which is a shame, and a few other injuries. But for me, I just probably have to try and do the same mindset as Sal, just getting off the line, put their skills under pressure as much as possible to try and force them to make mistakes because when they've got the ball in hand, they're crazy dangerous. They're offloading everything. They're playing from behind their goal line, and they got some world class attackers. So for me, that would be probably my input to the coaches, how I defend them. I think it'd be interesting this week. Obviously, Saracens got smashed by Bath on the weekend, and they got a very aggressive line three with Ben Earl and people like that. So it'd be interesting to see how Bristol get on against them this weekend as well. But for me, I just, like I said, try and put them in the most uncomfortable position as possible. But it's going to be tough because they're on fire at the moment.
Are you looking forward to going head to head with Rans?
Yeah, definitely. I think Randy's still one of my very good mates. We still chat most days on we're on different WhatsApp groups and stuff. So it'd be exciting. I think it'd be nice because obviously we played so much together, especially against a lot of the boys. Like a lot of them are still my very good friends who I talk to. Sean Marston, the coach, the new backs coach, he coached me when I was 12, and I still speak to him most days. Pat, it'd be really nice to go against Pat as a mentor and as a friend now, really. So yeah, we still talk. He texted me before the Bath game, texted me after the Bath game when we won. So it'd be really nice.
That's nice. Are you going to be lucky enough to be able to hang around and spend some time with the ex-players and your family after the game at all, or are you scheduled to go straight back?
So I've booked a flight for the Monday. So I'm assuming we haven't got a schedule yet. We'll have the Monday off. So the early flight and the late flight. I've booked the late flight just off my own back, just so I can go. Maybe I'll speak to Lane and stuff and some of the boys. And I'm sure my family would see me for a bit and go to the pub and stuff to catch up with them for sure.
Yeah, you have to have a pint of Thatcher. It's got to be a must, doesn't it? You're coming into Bristol.
Exactly. So now it'd be nice.
I was just going to say, Andy, I mean, first of all, I mean, the lads have, asked all the questions. So I like to do a little bit of freestyling because I've literally just walked in through the door.
Nice.
First of all, what I wanted to say is, as a fellow Bristolian, I wanted to say how proud we are of everything that you achieved in a Bristol shirt because, I mean, we're proud of everyone that puts that shirt on and performs for us. But as a Bristolian, it's extra special. And, the season where you were playing, as you said before, the 80 minutes when Rans was injured all the time, I don't know how you did it, mate. The engine was immense. And not only staying on the pitch for 80 minutes, but the level of performance was amazing. And, as a supporter, we just wanted to thank you because, you are an inspiration to a lot of the youngsters growing up in Bristol, and who want to follow in your footsteps. So it was fantastic. I hope you appreciate that because I know like you don't probably get a lot of that when you're playing, but we watched you week in and week out, and it was brilliant. So thank you.
No, I do appreciate that. Thanks very much. It's always nice to hear when you hear some of that type of stuff, especially leaving as well. Like that, like it is a shame. I think the difference how would I phrase this? I think firstly I appreciate it, but I think some stuff online which people say, and you got fans, keyboard warriors, and things like that. It does affect people, and like a lot of people say stuff which you don't really they know nothing about. I remember like last season, Sheed was getting a lot of stick, but no one knew what was going on behind closed doors. Even when I played against the Saracens, I got a lot of stuff, and like so I do appreciate stuff like that because it is nice, but if anyone's listening, like I'd probably just say like players do see stuff online, it does affect them for sure. It affected me for a long time when you were getting called rubbish and not good enough. Well, after I just played 150 games, so
Yeah.
like that. So I do appreciate that. So thank you very much.
And do you know what? That's a really good point to make. And there is still quite a lot of negativity in certain sections, on social media, which we always try and be balanced. This when that season wasn't going so well, we always, we have to say what we see on the pitch. We can't sugarcoat it, but we never ever would say anything personally about the player because let's face it, we couldn't do what you do, So some of the stuff that some of these plonkers put on social media, quite frankly, is a joke. If you've ever been down on that pitch at any level, to be able to criticize, you have to do it, don't you? And the only features these people exercise is their fingers, like you say. So it's a really good point you make. I think that is valid that, you guys do read things in press and, you know what a lot of nonsense is. Probably a lot of times you can't even defend yourselves with it, can you?
Just on the back of that, I was just wondering what the fans are like in Treviso in for Benetton. Is it a similar sort of thing, or what's it like?
Most of the time I don't understand what they say, which helps.
Well, that can be a bit like being in Bristol as well.
Yeah, true. But no, that's probably the big difference. I think even when we've had some poor games at Benetton, I think like the fans are a lot more family. Does that make sense? So like they support you through thick and thin, and which is brilliant. They're still cheering on, even when it's been. Believe me, we've had some poor games. They still get behind the team. But even like I saw online on the weekend when obviously the result wasn't great. Bristol have been unbelievable this year. Some of the stuff that Pat and Beanie have been doing, unbelievable. And people are still online commenting. I'm like, how or get behind Sam Worsley? The guy's 21. He's started his first Premiership game. He has a huge future. If he reads that, I don't know if he does, but if he reads stuff like that online, it's never going to be good. It's only going to go in one direction, that's downhill. So I feel like instead of pushing him down, big him up. He's unbelievable. He has all the talent. He's 21. Give him as much confidence as possible because then that's when you're playing well. You're never going to play poorly if you have loads of confidence. You're only going to play poorly if you don't think you're good enough. You think you might drop this ball. You might think that someone might say something online, And I got to a stage where in some games I was maybe straight on my phone and I was looking, oh, this guy said this about me, this guy said this about me, and it affects you, But it's just, I know it's a little simple thing, but I think it does make a big difference. I don't know I haven't spoken to Sam, so I'm real happy he's doing really well because he's a great kid. But I think things like that, like big him up, say he's amazing, Does that make sense?
No, I think that's really good, and it's good that you say that as well because obviously we'll put this out on our podcast, and there's quite a few people that listen to it, so hopefully they'll that'll be a really positive message to get out, and really appreciate it. Lee, you got another question?
Andy, I just wanted to know who were the characters in the dressing room now at Benetton.
So there's a few. So the main joker is probably Nacho Brex, the Italian centre with the scrum hat. Him, Tommy Albanos, the 10, a bit of a joker, the Argentinian 10. There's a few boys. I think the relationships are a bit different, obviously, because there's Italian speaking, there's Argentinian, and there's English. So it's a bit different. Whereas and I don't think they sometimes understand when if I take the mick out of them, is meant to be in a nice way, and they might take it a bit serious because they don't really. Well, I don't mean anything funny. I'm just trying to, But no, we have a really good squad. We have great depth. There's a lot of us, so yeah, we're a good team.
That's cool. Well, lads, I don't know if you've got anything else because that's kind of covered what we sort of thought about. before. So yeah, I really appreciate Andy. It's we do appreciate coming on. I mean, obviously we'll be down there at that game. So if we do see you, we'll kind of wave at you maybe. And if it's not, whatever happens, we might see if we can get a little soundbite or something after the game with you, or even a couple of the Italian lads would be quite good. That would give us a bit more of a cosmopolitan sort of thing on the podcast. But I hope it'll be a good game, whatever happens, and it'll be great to see you back.
I'm excited for it. So, look, it's probably the game I've been looking forward to most of the year by far. So, yeah, hopefully I'll start, fingers crossed, and we go from there.
Brilliant. Well, look, we really appreciate it.
We're looking forward to seeing you, bud.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
So there you go. That was it was really fun talking to Andy again, and it was really nice to hear from him. Some interesting stuff came out about that. I like the idea of him going into Pat's office and they're both in tears, sort of hugging each other, and sounds like he's having a whale of time in Italy, and sounds like it was a really, really good move. It also sounds that in terms of Benetton coming on Sunday, he sounded quietly confident. I think that they'll be ready for what our game plan, and of course they are doing quite well in the URC, and they're chock full of Italian internationals, as well as having a quality scrum half as well. So. I don't know. What do you think about the game then, Lee? Or Miles? What do you two think about Sunday? How should Bristol approach it?
Miles, do you want to take that?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you're right. There is a risk that fans might feel that some tin pot Italian team who are clearly going to be the underdogs.
I think that's a little bit harsh, Miles. A tin pot Italian team. You sound like that guy over in Munster talking about Bristol.
Anyway, from an Irish sort of like source. But no, he was a quality player at Bristol for all these years, and we were really sad to see him go. Well, we can understand, really, and it sounds like he's doing brilliantly over there. The team are treating him really well. He's loving his time. Why wouldn't you like playing in a nice warm climate, eating amazing food, and in a fantastic Italian environment, and playing a different style of rugby? Half joking aside, really, they potentially, Bristol fans might feel that they're a little bit the underdogs, shall I say, rather than tin pot. Yeah. However, that could be a little bit dangerous with that assumption.
Oh, that's a banana skin if you do assume that. Yeah.
And we've got a lot of injuries, so fans might say, do we play the best team we can this weekend? And I would say wholeheartedly, we have to. We've got no wins thus far in this tournament.
Yeah.
This is the only home game that potentially is winnable, although it could be a bit of a banana skin. We've got to go for it, and we've got to try and come out with potentially a huge win against Benetton this Sunday and play the best team we've got.
Yeah, I'd second that. I think we have to win this game. It is interesting. I love chatting to Andy because it was nice to have the Bristolian.
Yeah,
I mean, he's left God's own country, and he's gone to what sounds like maybe something close to it. So he seems really settled and happy, which is great.
Yeah.
Never ever forget the shift that he put in when he was playing 80 minutes. Every bloody week, in and out.
Yeah.
And I will temper that with I think he's overconfident.
Okay.
I think if we put our best team out, I think it will be a tough game, but I think it's a game that we will win, and I think that it's a game that we have to win. I agree with Miles totally. It's a game we've got to win. We, going forward to get into the Challenge Cup, this is the one, and I think then maybe Claremont we send a makeshift team. So I think we target this one out of the two.
I think, No, I agree. I think we definitely need Harry Byrne to play to get some game time.
Yeah, I
wonder whether Kieran Marmion might start, give Harry a bit of a rest. I just wonder whether he's had 2 tough games and could do with a little bit of a break. He's obviously had a busy Christmas with his kids as well, and dressing up at Father Christmas one day and then playing against Sale the next.
He's only little.
It's tough
to get down a chimney, isn't
it? Yeah, exactly.
I thought he was going to be one of the elves.
Yeah, and I just think it's a good opportunity to try out that combination that you were saying.
Let's go for it.
And then maybe Ravovo on the wing, see how he gets on. But we've also got to try and protect these players. I think I think we want to see a big game from our pack as well. I think that's one of the things that we've said in the past, that one of the reasons why our jouet game works so well is that we've had a phenomenal effort from the forwards as well. And I just wonder whether they've just got a little bit tired, and of course injuries have not helped at all, and we've lost some key players. So maybe it's a time to give the pack a little opportunity to say, you go and practice a few things, really target slowing the ball down, or target the breakdown, or target the support play. I think this is the thing I was saying at Saracens to someone sat next to me, is that we made a few breaks, and it seems so unfair that good play can then result in a penalty because you're slightly isolated. Now, of course, the counter argument is that your forwards should therefore be clearing out and be quick. But sometimes if your player does something amazing, it is almost impossible to keep up with them. And then it's easy for a defender to come in and jackal. And it just seems like, I always feel like refs are so keen to give a holding on penalty when someone's isolated, when actually really you should maybe give them the benefit of the doubt just for a second or two, just to say let's allow one more second for a clear out Merchant to go, and if he doesn't turn up, then ping him. So I feel like our forwards need to have a good solid game.
I think you're right.
Good solid scrum, good solid set piece, just to get that confidence back again.
I think they'll need to, though.
They will.
So.
Well, you look at their pack. I mean, they've got Canaro, they've got Lamaro, they've got Ruska, they've got some massive units.
Big
they've
balls.
got Ferrari, and that's not just what they're going to turn up in, driving. And they've got some big units.
And we should say as well, they've had a rest.
They've
had a big rest.
Well, Andy's been up in the mountains. Actually, he said he was going to go to the mountains, because I then followed. No, he was just going to go to the mountains to have a little. The next day on his Instagram, there was a picture of him and the boys in the mountains, and he looked very relaxed, Andy. I mean,
So what was he cycling up there?
I think he just sounded like they were just going to some viewpoint. I mean, it didn't look like it was hardcore mountaineering. He was in his kind of, his loafers and his slightly short trousers, Italian style.
Top of Dundee or
something like that. So, I mean, I must admit, after that, we just rushed back from work. And you weren't feeling that well. I wasn't
feeling great.
And then I was a bit rushed.
Well, no, you kept. To be fair, you kept it together. Right? I mean, I was so tired when I got in. I was like, you boys just already asked the question.
I was quite rushed, and then Andy saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to the mountains tomorrow, and it's been lovely," and I was like, "Oh, I'm quite jealous actually."
Yeah, I was.
And I was thinking, I'm going to Portishead to work for 10 hours.
So anyway,
it was brilliant to have him on.
It was good.
I hope the listeners appreciate that as well, because he's one of our own.
He is, and he was very grateful to come on. And I texted him afterwards to say thanks, and he was like, "Yeah, really appreciate it. I hope it was okay." I was like, "Mate, it's fine.
Brilliant."
It's like just really appreciate you coming to chat." So
we should say as well, just to end, not on a negative, but the social media side of things that Andy was on about then.
Yeah,
he did cop a lot of stick.
He did,
and I just felt it's sometimes I think we have to be a little bit careful. Collectively, right. What we say and individually what we say. These are people that are doing their day job, and we don't know what lives they have to live. What happens before they get on a pitch, and
so I'm sure that the owner of Benetton Treviso will be looking for Miles on Sunday to discuss the description of his team as a tin pot Italian team. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna if I see anybody from Treviso, I'm gonna say it's him. Yeah. That's him. And you were gonna go defend yourself.
I think Miles. I might move seats on Sunday.
It'd be great if we've literally got like a tin hat we wear for the game. That'd be brilliant.
I don't think anything big enough to you. Maybe those industrial baked bean cans you get at schools and stuff.
Anyway, right, on that note, we got to stop because I feel like we're now rambling.
Absolutely.
But it's been fun. So anybody, have a good week, stay safe, and as we always like to say,
up the Bears.